Good day, YouTube. It's the 27th of November, 2024. And every year, Thanksgiving week, I service all my generators. And every year, there seems to be one or two additional generators at the table, if you will. And this year's no exception. We got a full host of Honda generators from the little smallest early 90s EX350, really the first inverter generator on the market as far as I know. My 70s vintage EM400s, 80s vintage EM600, my 4 EU1000s, my 2 EU2000s, my EU3000i Handy, my EU3000IS, and my EU7000 IS, brand new, 0 hours. And I do have a Kohler 7000 in our bus conversion. I need to get to that as well. So every year I try to come up with some things that make this procedure a little easier, a little better, and because it does take a little bit of time, but it's absolutely necessary. Some of my generators are 15 plus years old, and I have never had an issue with them once they've entered my fleet. And I say that because some of these I've got used in poor condition, this being probably the worst, and it is very close from taking its position, entering my fleet. Once they are completely repaired and they prove themselves, they can then enter the fleet, and then it just becomes an annual maintenance thing. I use these in my mobile DJ business. Sometimes I need, depending on what my setup is, I need 3 or 4 at a time, not for capacity, because I have ability to broadcast. So I have a mobile DJ business. I can set up my van. I need a generator to run it. I have broadcast capabilities from the van and remote locations to pick up that signal, amplify the signal, and then do sound reinforcement at that location. And I'm not limited, so I can do multiple locations. Each location needs a generator. My EU1000s are my workhorses. I use that particular generator exclusively for the last 2 years. It runs probably 12, 14, 16 hours per week, all season long. My season is nice weather months. Okay, so that's what I use them for. This one backs up my house, which is a separate property from my shop. Either one of the 3000s can back up my shop here. Both facilities are set up to just plug these in and go. This one's going to get converted to propane very soon. That video hopefully was out, and hopefully it's converted by the time you're seeing this one, or very close. But anyway, either one of these can back up my shop here, all set up to do that. So pretty cool. I also take that one with me in my truck camper for running my AC and so forth. So, and then I have a vintage camper and stuff. I like to take my vintage generators and run the light and silly things like that. So over the years, picked up a few tips and tricks for getting the oil in and out. And these are a couple things you can go to eBay, probably Amazon as well, and get these. This is a aluminum. It threads into the oil fill and oil dipstick position on the EU1000s, EU2000s, possibly others. And when you're dumping the oil out of them, so you literally screw that in, and then you can dump this into, a used oil container with a funnel. And that seems to be the easiest. So let me go back here for a second. So my procedure over the Thanksgiving week is to change the fuel out. Some of these generators don't get any use at all over the year. Okay, this one has not been used. That one, I did use it a little bit, but I run only non-ethanol fuel, and non-ethanol fuel will last a year, no problem. But I don't want it to go 2 years. and I can't remember when I used and when I fueled and stuff, all these things. I don't keep a log or anything. That's why I use that one exclusively for my every event kind of deal. Plus, it's one of the cheapest ones that I bought used, and it's not in the greatest condition, so I just use it. And I change the oil in it mid-season, and I'll change oil in it today. So that one, I know I need to change the oil in it, but I do use it all the time. I don't need to change the fuel. So these things are all here to get their fuel changed if they need it, and they're all here to get the oil changed if they need it. And I'm going to assess each one of these by just pulling the dipstick. If the oil's starting to get some color to it, I will just change it. Okay, so to change it, I have this. I've done a video on it. This, I think it's a Holt. It's a fluid sucker, and it's pretty darn handy for just sucking the oil out of these things. That is one way to do it. But I typically dump these, okay? Especially the 1000s are nice and light, and I'm going to dump the fuel out of them anyway. But these bigger ones, you can't flip them over. So we'll suck the oil out or drain the oil out, or we'll do something. You could choose what's easiest for you, but I'm going to use the oil sucker for the first time this year on these generators. Now, back to fuel. I'm going to dump the fuel out of everything I can dump the fuel out of. That helps to get any little bits or particles or something out of there. It's better than sucking it out. Again, that one, far too heavy to dump the fuel out. I will pump the fuel out. And for that, I have a couple of these. These are like 10, 12 bucks. I'm going to drag it out. This is where I store it. Have to clean it up a little bit. These battery operated, can I turn it on with one finger? Battery operated pumps. And you just pop the cap and just slip these down in there. These are kind of designed to leak around where my hand is. You just got to be aware of that. Actually, when you pump with it for a little while, it kind of quits leaking. But I'll pump the fuel out of these three big guys, dump the fuel out of the rest of them. So this is pretty handy. If you don't have one, you can get it, like say Harbor Freight, on sale for $10. Regular retail is, I don't know, 12 or something. That's where I keep it. There should be two of them in there. Yeah, there's two of them in there. Because I picked one up at a yard sale or something. I go, hey, those are handy. I like it. I do my lawn tractors and things with it too. So, okay, so that's fuel. So I showed you the little device here that somebody made. I picked it up many years ago, probably on eBay. And this is pretty handy for dumping the oil out of the generators. Now, when you go to refill it, this thing kind of works for refilling, but this is way handier. It's a flexible tube. You screw that in. It's got a little O-ring on it. The same place where you'd screw this where the dipstick is on the EUs, and then it'll bend. Then you can put oil in it. Okay, so speaking of oil, this is what's new for me this year. Look at this variety. Do you know how many of these generators take the exact same amount of oil as another one? None. Every one of these has a different oil capacity. So let me show you what I've come up with for that. So first off, all my generators get 1030 oil, although maybe I'm not a huge Valvoline fan, but it doesn't matter. I am using a synthetic blend. The advantage of that is if you ever need to add oil to something, and say it's got synthetic oil in it, or maybe you don't know what's in it, and you add conventional oil to it, they don't really mix that well. They're not supposed to be mixed. If you have a synthetic blend in it, you could add either conventional oil or synthetic oil, and it will be fine. So anyway, just a tip. Now, like I mentioned, all of my generators take a different quantity of oil. So I went online and asked Google what, like an EU 1000, what its oil capacity is, and wrote it down. And then my EU 2000 and my EU 3000 handy, my EU 3000 IS, And I wrote them all down because every one of them are different. Then I went to the Dollar Tree and got one of these. Measuring cup, right? And then I took my labeler and made a label, and then I put a little arrow at the end of where I should fill this to when I'm putting oil in my various generators. So the EU 7000 takes 38.5 ounces. I probably converted that from liters or something or other. And at the end of that arrow is the level I should fill that to. So this is 32 ounces as far as these factory labels are. So I had to scale the rest of it. So, and my EU 3000 handy takes 16 ounces, so I fill it up to that arrow. And then those little EM 400s, 10 ounces. You would think the EM 600 would be the same. Well, you would be wrong. EM 600 takes 12 ounces. The EU 1000s take 8 ounces. I think that's crazy. 8 ounces of oil in the EU 1000s. And people don't change their oil very often on some of these generators. It's 8 ounces of oil. And the EU 3000 IS, the big one, 18 ounces. The EU 2000 takes exactly 1 quart, 32 ounces. So as I'm changing my oil, I get the oil all dumped out or sucked out or drained out or whatever. Then I can just simply grab my 5-quart jug and put the correct amount of oil in my little measuring cup here and dump it in my generators. That's gonna make my life just a little bit easier. So I went yesterday and got my non-ethanol fuel. I don't always keep a 5-gallon jug of non-ethanol here for my small engine stuff because I don't use that much volume, but right now, because I'm changing gasoline, I need quite a bit of fuel. And I keep 1 can of fuel in my DJ van all the time, and I filled it up and put it right back in the van so I didn't forget it. So I have 1 more can that's always full in the van in case I'm at an event and I run the generator more than about 6 or 7 hours. I need to refill it on the go. So anyway, these are 2 gallons a piece, average, something like that. So I got about 9 gallons of non-ethanol fuel here. And then I've got an empty can on standby because there's nothing wrong with the fuel in these generators. I will certainly put it in one of my vehicles and burn it. So what I have is my funnel is on standby and some Dollar Tree coffee filters just to drain and strain the fuel out. So I'm not, if I'm catching junk or whatever, or something falls off the outside or what have you, we'll just filter it through a coffee filter as it's going into the empty can. And then as that can fills up, I'll go dump it in my truck and then come back and finish the job. So the EU 1000s take 2 quarts of fuel. The 2000s, I think, are 1 gallon. This is substantial, 4 or 5 gallons. I can't remember. It's been a minute. I've actually had this generator for 3 years, going on 4, something like that. I got it right before I retired through work, saved some money. And so I've changed the fuel out of it every year. I also put a little bit of seafoam. I put half a can of seafoam in a 5-gallon jug. I don't think I need it for, I'm not doing it because I need it for fuel stabilization. I run it once a year in all of my equipment, everything, mowers and such, just to clean the fuel systems and cut the carbon out of the cylinders and et cetera, et cetera. So I always put some seafoam in. So I've got some there. I've got some out in the barn. I've got some out in the shed. I keep quite a bit of that on hand all the time. So yeah, so we're dealing with the fuel, putting it in that can, dump it in my truck. we're going to collect the used oil and just take it to recycling. If they don't need oil change, I'm not going to change it. I've found that I run my generators typically in a parking lot. I don't run them in dirty environments. I've never had to. I'd say never. I don't normally have to service air filters and such. I'll open them up, clean up the exteriors. All of my generators have a cover. They're all kind of piled up here for the moment, but so everything's got cover because I keep my stuff in very nice condition. I even got a cover for that little boy. These not so much, but these, yes. So I think I've covered everything. A couple little things. Yeah, again, look on eBay, possibly Amazon. Get you some of these. You can see these are well used. This is an annual event for me. So here we go. Okay, guys, I'm going to get to servicing these things. You guys have a great holiday season, or whenever you're seeing this video. Appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up. Share it with a friend that's got generators or power equipment of any kind, and maybe they'll pick up a tip or trick or two. And we'll see you guys on the next video.